Okay, we've got a couple minutes past the hour, and why don't we go ahead and get started. Thanks to everybody for joining the webinar today. This is the third Orion X webinar in our series on human marketing. And today we're going to talk about building and strengthening your online community now. So I'm Celia Chase, and I'm VP of Marketing Services at Orion X, and I'm really delighted today to be joined by a special guest speaker, Linda Crowe, who works at IBM and lives and breathes online communities every day. So I'm really delighted that she's going to be able to share some of her knowledge, what they're doing at IBM, and the great results that they're seeing. Linda, can you introduce yourself?
Sure, thank you. And thanks for inviting me today, Celia. I really appreciate it. Excited about this topic and sharing what we know. I'm the program director for the IBM community. And what that means is that I'm responsible for community strategy as well as the digital platforms for delivering community experiences at IBM. And I've been there just almost 3 years now.
Excellent. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how you go about building a community and growing it. Let's say if you're just starting out, or how you might better engage your community if you already have one that exists. And then we'll share some real live examples and then hear from Linda at IBM about how they're approaching their community and their results. And then we want to leave time at the end for questions and be able to hear from you all. So why community is important in particular right now? We've certainly seen a lot of growth in online communities over the past decade or so. Businesses have really found it a good way to engage with their customers or their prospects. It's an opportunity to get unfiltered feedback and to share ideas. But really part of communities have been a balance between live events and online events. But with the COVID situation, of course, most of these live events are gone away, at least for now. So online communities are really more important for us to bring together these folks of like-minded folks. In one recent Ad Age study, they found that about 50% of businesses said that there was some real business impact to online communities in seeing about 10 to 25% cost reduction in customer acquisition costs. And part of this reason was because the existing customers within the community purchased more frequently, and they also had higher upsell rates. Another real business benefit that people have seen from online communities is higher customer satisfaction rates. So these are just a few reasons why they're important to brands or organizations, but there's also real benefits for the community members, and they're the ones that really make this count. So it's an opportunity to share resources and best practices, and oftentimes they can get questions answered that they can't get elsewhere. They might not be able to tap a colleague, and just have a place to go to congregate of people that are in similar situations or have similar interests. So how do you go about building community? This is really your plan, and everything needs a plan. And at Orion X, when we've worked with clients in creating their communities, we've identified 5 key areas: objectives, audience, platform, guidelines, and your metrics. So first off, your objectives. In any good business situation, you're going to want to know why you're doing it and what you're trying to achieve with this community. For instance, it might just be a space where you're looking to bring your customers, your prospects together and share information, but it really might be more about building your demand generation funnel and increasing your revenue. In some other cases, it's more about promoting products or gaining insight to new products and an opportunity to tap folks that are actually using your products or service on a day-to-day basis. The audience is critical here. And I just want to clarify the difference between community and audience, because sometimes there is some confusion there. And I really like this quote from Chris Brogan, an author. He said, "The difference between an audience and a community is which way the chairs are facing." So if you think of the chairs facing forward or facing the stage, that's more about your audience. But if you think of the chairs facing one another, that's people talking amongst themselves, having sharing topics of interest. And another distinction is communities really need to be earned. You have to be providing that value to the folks that are a part of it, whereas audiences can sometimes be purchased through advertising, for instance. Another thing, so when you consider your audience within your community, or really who you're targeting as your members, it's going to be folks that are congregating around a similar topic of interest. For instance, this real example of a LinkedIn group on ERP is any professionals who are interested in LinkedIn It might be sales folks or technical implementers or even a specific type of platform software. And then within that, there's a lot of subgroups, some of the folks that I named. So you can have these very broad groups and then subgroups or segments within that. Next thing to consider is your platform. And when you're looking at your platform, there's sometimes some trade-offs, you know, whether it's more important to really control your functionality and your features, or whether you want it to be really flexible, or whether it's global or local. And if it's global, does it need to scale? And can the platform accommodate that? There are some free platforms that are easy to, you know, sort of plug and play. You might lose some flexibility in terms of the features and functionality, but you can get up and running faster. You know, LinkedIn groups, Facebook platform. Maybe you really need to lean on messaging, so something like WhatsApp is really important. Customizable might take longer to get up and running, but you can really choose what you want to feature. You might have more scalability. And when Linda has an opportunity to talk about IBM, she can really share in terms of how the platform played into their decisions. So the guidelines. Guidelines are important in terms of you want to be consistent in terms of how people are going to engage with their community. And these are really how people are going to participate. You're going to want to designate a moderator or a facilitator, and that person is helping to keep the discussions on track, keep them positive. Sometimes you might have negative feedback, which can also be helpful too, gaining insights into your services or products, and then bringing that back on track if it is negative or things go astray, and that person helps keep the content engaging and the discussions on a consistent thread. One thing that's really important when you're considering your guidelines is you don't want anything to be too big of hurdles or too hard for them to engage, and so people can plug in easily and stay engaged. So your metrics are going to be very important in any business situation, not only when you're building your community, but also in terms of maintaining it. And, you know, your metrics are going to be important also to your management team and how are they going to be measuring this. And so you want to define those up front and know how you're going to be looking at community. And those can be things like your numbers of members or your growth rate, or they can be really more tied to the business in terms of the pipeline to revenue generation, or something like related to customer satisfaction, or the support cases, the number of support cases decreasing. So there's several different metrics that you can look at, and this will also be an area that I'm excited, Linda, to share what IBM has looked at in their metrics. So how do you go about growing your community? We've talked about why it's important, how you build it. Well, you want to let people know that it exists, and you're going to do that through promoting and recruiting. And this is really a critical role also of that facilitator moderator too. That one of the big priorities has got to be recruiting. And that's going to be done through your website, letting people know. There's an example here on our slide, and we've shown how SAP is making it aware on their website, and all the different ways that people are engaging on it. Your social media channels, through your emails, through your sales rep, your partners, and just letting people know what's out there, how they can engage, and the value that it's providing. Then there's some more creative ways, and things like an ambassador program has been very successful with some of our clients and also across the industry. And these are folks that are often experts, and they can help influence topics. They can be a source of ideas or opinions, and what's in it for them a lot of times, it's a source of credibility. They can earn badges for their online profile. In the Intel example here, you can see some of the top contributors are recognized by points. So, you know, that's something for them to be, you have some swag around that. Reddit is a good example of how they reward their contributors. Not only do they have upvotes, but they often give awards for people that are contributing in a really meaningful way or at a high level. So you also want to consider how you engage your community, because the most valuable part is your members and how much they're engaged in, and the feedback that they're giving and the content. So this goes both ways. The moderator, again, is going to be critical here in terms of providing value, because people aren't going to stay engaged. They're not going to continue to participate if they're not receiving valuable content. One example here of HubSpot that is a good community example for marketers, where not only do they provide blog and educational materials, but they often give templates or online courses. Some of it's free, some of it requires paid access, but it's meaningful for both sides of the equation. So it's a day-to-day basis. Marketers can tie into this community and use the content in their daily jobs. It's also important to think about segmenting your audience. So we talked about the broad audiences and then the subsegments or groups within that. And sometimes when your community can grow too big, you might want to tease it out into separate subgroups. And so that keeps the ads relevant to the folks that are engaging into it. Having an editorial calendar, which includes a mix of content. So some written, maybe some webinars or videos, chat rooms, online courses, and providing a variety of mediums. And then also thinking about, it's not necessarily only informative or educational, but there might be tips and resources, or some of it might be more humorous or humorous or entertaining, and something that's a little more lighthearted that stimulates people in a different way. You can also consider like provocative discussions and teasing out questions that really engage people on what's going on in the industry or their particular area. Another way to engage your community is recognizing people. We saw in that Intel example how they give points, or in other cases, sometimes there's tokens of appreciation. And the moderator here needs to adjust and see what is working, what's not working, and keep that value added piece to the members so they stay engaged and you continue to grow your community. So before I pass it off to Linda, just a quick kind of recap of what we've talking about here so far. And what OrionX has identified when we've worked with clients is the benefit. You want to make sure that you're providing benefit to the members and the brands. So it's a two-sided equation. You want to, when you're considering how to build your community, those 5 aspects we went over: the objectives, audience, the platform, the guidelines, and the metrics. And then how you're going to grow this. You're going to promote it. You're going to continue to recruit. You can consider innovative ways like ambassadors, rewarding contributors, and then engaging them, providing that value, and making sure that you segment it and keep the audience on track. So now I'd like to pass the baton to Linda and have her share what they're doing at IBM and some of their great work.
Thanks, Celia. So as I said at the top of the hour, my focus is, as the program director of the IBM community, is really on the strategy as well as the digital platform. And I have a number of colleagues who look after the individual communities. So everything that Celia talked about in terms of planning and deploying the community, those are things that we did at IBM. And in my 3 years there, what we've been able to do is to really build out a unique experience, and I'm going to walk you through that now. First of all, we took a look at who our audience was, and it was really important for us to be able to build a community for users. IBM has done a really good job of creating great relationships with C-suite executives and line of business managers. And what we wanted to do with IBM Community is to really take that great relationship experience and bring it to the people who are using our products every single day. So, so we were really clear that that was the audience that we wanted to build a community around. And we wanted to create an experience where they could come together in community so that they could support each other, they can share with each other, they can learn, they can network, they can up-level their professional skill sets. So that was our guiding principle and the mission that we set out with IBM Community. We launched the digital presence a couple of years ago, and since then, these are some of the results that we've achieved. Some of these are 2019 numbers, you know, to give you an idea about the activity and engagement over the course of a year. But a few things I want to highlight. We at the end of April, we just crossed 185,000 community members, and I'm expecting that by the end of June, that will be well over 200,000. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, we held meetups around the globe, and we have about 190,000 meetup attendees who came to our events throughout 2019. Our discussion forums have been very active. Last year we had almost 10,000 discussion threads and 1,300 blog posts. And you can see the numbers for webinars and some of the other activities that we do. Let me give you a little bit of an idea about how we engage our community. In the days when we could continue to gather together, we had both in-person events as well as an online experience that we built out. So just kind of walking you through the 4 channels that we've got, or the 4 channels that we activated on. And by the way, I'm going to excuse myself, I have a little bit of allergy, so you might hear a little flutter in my voice. So the ways that we brought people together were with Community Day and user groups. Community Day is a day that we held the day before our Think conference, which is our user conference. The day before Think, we gathered in 2018 and 2019, we brought our users together in Community Day. And this was a day with multiple tracks where they could come together, go to sessions to really do deep dive on some of IBM's products and technologies. It was a really successful way to activate and engage our community members, and each of those community days drew well over 1,000 attendees. So we know that the content that we're delivering in those community days is really resonating with our users. The other way that we engage with our users in real life, again, pre-pandemic days, was in user groups. We have over 300 user groups around the globe. These are users who have volunteered to host and to put together a gathering of like-minded people within their geographic region to come together and talk about their experiences with IBM technologies and IBM products, and to help each other learn. Another channel that we use is virtual community days. So using the community day in-person experience, what we did was we translated that to a digital event. And it's really just like a community day, but it's delivered online. We have tracks, 3 tracks over the course of 8 hours in the day. People can come in and leave, go to various different sessions of their choice. And last year we did 4 of these virtual community days and had over 20,000 people attending online, coming in and coming out of our virtual community day sessions. And the last way that we engage our audience is with our community.ibm.com site. And that's what I want to dive into a little bit more now. So in the IBM community, when you come to the community page, the home page, you have an opportunity to join or sign up or log in to the community. You also get to see some content that might be of interest to you from a general perspective. But really what we want to do is navigate you to the groups where you're going to find your birds of a feather. So once you log in, then what you see is we've got, this is starting to surface the groups that I personally belong to and that I'm tracking. We're starting to curate content that is relevant for an individual based on what they've told us about their product and technology interests. We have gamification. You can see I've earned a few badges, and those are displayed on my profile over here, if I can point to it. And we also have a leaderboard to try to encourage people to come in, participate in the community, and as you participate, you earn points toward that leaderboard score. So the next thing that I'm going to drill down on is what you see that I'm a member of a number of groups. And when you go into the group page experience, this is where you start seeing the latest posts, where you can get access to the discussion threads. You can start networking with other members. There are resource libraries available for our users. There are blogs. And this content is all user generated. This is our community members coming together to share with each other and to learn from each other. we're finding that our community membership in the IBM community is about 80% customers and about 15% IBMers. So we really love that ratio because it shows us that our users are really passionate about coming together and helping each other, and they're finding value in the community. Now, the technical platform is kind of my specialty, and that's what I've been working on for the last 3 years at IBM, but by no means is that the be all and end all. As I mentioned at the start of my presentation, we have community managers that are actively engaged with our community members and that are looking after the various different groups and communities under the community.ibm.com umbrella. And their role in the community is very, very important. So as you're looking at community, I want to make sure that you're thinking about not just the technology and how to deliver that, and not just the content, but also who are the people that can support and really help build and encourage engagement on your digital platforms. So with that, what I want to do is invite you to come and experience community.ibm.com, join a couple groups, and find your birds of a feather.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that, Linda. And it's really interesting to see everything that IBM has done related to community and some of the results you guys have seen and the growth that you've seen over almost 10,000 members in the conversations that you've had, and also that mix of external and internal folks. So you're getting participation on both sides. Yep. So I can see how it's really making an impact. And just to circle back a little bit on OrionX, we have been working with many different clients, helping them build and grow their communities, and also offer a portfolio of other marketing services, some that we've listed here. But we really wanted to take this opportunity to open it up to questions and see if anybody has any questions. And let's see what we have. Okay. So this is an interesting one here, Linda, that could be a good opportunity to see how you've approached it at IBM. It says, how can I involve my top executives in the community? You've had experience with that.
Yeah, we've had some pretty good success in involving some of our executives in the community. Obviously, busy executives, you know, they need to prioritize it. And what we have done is reached out to the executives that would have a particular stake in building particular communities. For example, in data science, we've got an executive who oversees a program called Data Science Elite. And these are IBMers that have been identified as critical consultants in this area of data science. And they work with sales teams to make sure that our clients are successful in deploying data science solutions and using data science to solve business problems. The executive of that program is a member of the community, and the reason why he's a member of the community is because it helps him connect with customers on a daily basis, and to be able to see what topics of interest our customers and clients and business partners are interested in discussing, and seeing what issues they have, what issues they're facing. It helps him not only be a more effective communicator to our client base, but it also helps him lead that elite team in understanding what are the critical topics that our audiences are interested in. So I think really the way to get your executives engaged is to find a way, find a value from the community that resonates with them. We also have some people from our product management team that are members of the community. And what they like to do is go in and browse the discussion threads, because that's where they get some of their best product ideas. So, you know, you really have to figure out, it's a customized and tailored message for the executive, and what kind of value the community is going to deliver to them.
Okay, great, excellent. And that's the fact that you've had so many of your executives involved. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we're fortunate.
So another question that came through from Samuel is how do you promote and or encourage content by community members? And I can share some of the ways that we've seen success in that area at OrionX, and feel free to chime in, Linda. One of the things that I mentioned was sometimes initiating a provocative line of discussion, perhaps something that's related to an industry event or that's topical, and so that people want to engage and provide their information. Another situation is customers providing their perspective on their future situation in their area, and using that, something that could be used for an ebook or a marketing material. In one case, there was a community, a client with a successful community did that, created an ebook, and it was their #1 demand generation activity because it was real customer examples where they had provided input to. But I'd be interested if IBM's seen anything of how you promote or encourage people's participation.
Yeah, we have a couple of different ways that we do that. So one is our community managers are actively engaged in the community, and what they'll do is oftentimes post discussion threads asking community members relevant questions and encouraging the community to respond to that. We also have a blogging program. Anybody who's a community member can be a blogger. You don't have to work for IBM to do that. IBM has a program called the Ibm Champions Program. These are identified advocates of IBM, experts who at using particular IBM technologies and products, and who are actively speaking in the community. They're actively engaged in the community. They're helping other users be successful. So we tap the champions quite a bit to blog on the platform and create that content and encourage their engagement. And then finally, the other way that we encourage content is when you join a group in the IBM community, that then affords you the ability to be able to keep updated and get email about the content that's going on in the community, what discussion threads have been updated, what new blogs have been posted, what events are going on in the community. So that email is really an important way to encourage our users to come back to their groups and to participate in the community and see what kind of conversations are going on.
Yeah, you can really see where that engagement aspect is so important, because the value in engaging them builds. So community members are going to recruit more community members if they see it of value.
Yep, exactly.
So there's a couple questions that are along the same line in terms of the best place to start, or how do you get started creating a community building effort. And one way that we've seen that's been really effective is to start with, some of your key customers or a handful of customers, and just understanding what would be important to them and how would they find a community valuable, what would they like to see in, and how would they like to engage. And that sort of being the foundation of that you would grow. And then really going back to that discussion of, what are the objectives that you're trying to achieve here from a business perspective? Is it really about building your pipeline? Or is this really meant to be getting, brand ambassadors or product insights? Do you have any different take on that?
No, I'd agree with that. I think the other thing to keep in mind is, take a look at community as a part of your marketing portfolio and a part of your, brand portfolio, and see where community can really shore up the brand experience that you're trying to deliver for the audiences that you are targeting. Community is a great way to sort of build in a purpose-driven aspect of your company, and it it's a very different experience than, say, a marketing effort through nurture emails and trying to convert people on a website. Those you do still have that capability with community, certainly. The whole notion of having events in the community and people registering, for example, for a webinar gives you an opportunity to then take those registrations and put them into a marketing nurture. But the experience that you're delivering in a community really is about offering up expertise and bringing people together to talk about the expertise that they have. So it's really more about creating a sharing environment as opposed to, and a participatory environment as opposed to a nurture stream.
Okay, that's a good distinction. So I'm going to take one last question here, and this one they've specifically said for Linda, and it's a two-parter. So I'll ask the first part, and then we'll move to the second one. So they're curious about any connections you create between marketing and community work, and if you're able, are you able to find influencers within those communities and bring them out for your marketing efforts? That's part one.
Yeah. Oh, that's part one. Okay. Yeah, I talked a little bit about how we connect community with marketing efforts in the last question. It really is about, with the IBM community, we work really hard to make sure that we're not marketing in the community, that we are creating a platform for people to both in, when we can come back together again in real life, both in real life and online. And really what we want to do is facilitate those conversations. Those conversations are already going on. And people are already talking about your brand. Your customers are already consulting with each other. So having a platform and having this community space where you can foster that conversation allows you to participate in it and influence it, which is always a good thing. Marketing can sit right alongside your community building efforts. And what we are finding is that people who are in consideration or might be part of on a marketing journey with IBM, they bounce back and forth from the marketing message to the community conversations, because they want to validate whether or not what IBM is saying is what our customers are saying. And so clearly what community does is it gives you some feedback about whether or not your marketing messages are resonating with your community members or not, and you can validate it using community. What was the second part of the question?
I haven't said it yet, so you're safe. Here it comes.
All right, good.
So what is the difference between the content that you communicate out to your communities versus what you offer in your marketing and sales efforts?
The community messaging, I would say that's really not about the brand delivering a marketing message in the community. What we're finding is, particularly because our audience is user-oriented, they really like deeply technical content about the product. They like tips and tricks on how to use various different features. But we really try to encourage the members of the community, not IBMers so much, to participate in those conversations. So so what I would say is, because of the target audience that we're going after, which is people who are using our product, it tends to be very product technical oriented, which is really not what you would use from a marketing perspective, right? So it really is going to depend on who your audience is and who are the members of your community, but think about it more from the perspective of, if you were because we're focused on the users, we think of it more from what would I need if I were using this product?
Well, that's great feedback, especially from somebody who's an expert in doing this every day. So I really appreciate you joining us today, Linda. And I think we're going to call that a wrap. And thanks so much for everyone for joining. And we'll talk to you at the next Orion X webinar.
Yeah, thanks, Celia, and thanks everybody who joined.
Thank you.